The story begins with the protagonist of the game receiving a letter from an estranged friend inviting the protagonist to a gathering in a new community where she has found peace and harmony in.
Dear friend, let me start out by saying how much I regret our falling out years ago. I have done a lot of soul searching and I want to make up for my mistakes back then. For some time I have lived with a lovely little community of peace, love, and harmony loving hippie Christians. I know it sounds weird, but they really get my life together. I would really love for you to meet them and to spend some time together. There's a festival in a couple of weeks. It would mean the world to me if you come. Hope to see you soon. Astrid.
Just on that note, the protagonist decides to pay Astrid a visit as she misses her a lot and wants to potentially rekindle their friendship. As the protagonist arrives at the gate to the festival, which seems to be some sort of midsummer festivity in a Nordic country, she is welcomed by a man wearing a flower-twig crown, known as Father Valgres, the leader of the group, who explains Astrid is not here, but that she will be back for the festival. This is already a big red flag as Astrid was the one inviting the protagonist and she would have to act as a host introducing the group rather than being missing. As she follows the man into the secluded and isolated place with a cabin in the middle of the woods, a number of people dressed in the same attire welcome the protagonist in as if inviting her and already accepting her in their little secret community. This is already triggering me remembering the Midsummer movie and how identical the intro is to the movie. The only major difference so far is that this community is a hippie group of Christians while the Nordic crowd in the Midsummer movie were following Nordic beliefs and rituals. The protagonist is instantly sent to a room where the windows are barred, given some time and space to rest and prepare for tomorrow. Sleeping on the decently comfortable bed, the protagonist is awakened the next morning by a woman in white, passing her the same clothes and asking her to help around lighting incense around the house. Exploring the rooms in the house, the protagonist is shocked to find bunk beds stuffed in the bedrooms, unsuitable for human life. She questions herself how they can live like this with no privacy or space, being cramped into small bedrooms. That's when she meets one of the people who explains the protagonist will be able to let go of all the troubling thoughts and experiences that she had to endure before, talking in a positive way which confuses the protagonist. The man explains that the festival will do that to the protagonist, which makes it even more concerning. The protagonist goes on lighting the incense around the house when she comes to a shocking discovery of a photo of herself from some time ago, standing next to a group of people with a red circle around her face. This terrifies the protagonist, wondering who could have done this and if it could have been Astrid. This still doesn't make much sense to why she would do that, as if she is being targeted. Speaking to another woman dressed in white, she explains that people in this group, which she labels as family, are never alone. This can be a nightmare for many people, not having any privacy, but for certain people, this can be an advantage. People who need contact and interaction constantly, and maybe people who struggle in their lives, needing encouragement and company. Even for the most outgoing and social person, a little privacy is necessary to keep the sanity. Either way, the protagonist finishes lighting all the incense and decides to go back to Hedda, the lady who instructed her to light the incense. Getting back to Hedda, she thanks the protagonist and asks her to join with Hjalmar, who needs some help with work outside. Meeting with Hjalmar, the protagonist is instructed to join the group with decorating the grounds for the upcoming festival. She is asked to find several flowers, but is strictly warned not to wander outside the gates, as she could easily get lost in the forest. After collecting some flowers and getting back to Hjalmar, he thanks her and explains that Astrid won't be back until tomorrow, claiming something has come up which she needs sorting out. This is starting to get worrying already, but the protagonist goes along with the story and goes back to her room, but not without having bad thoughts that something is wrong here and that the people are constantly watching her. As the protagonist goes to get back to her room, she recognizes a notebook which belonged to Astrid, being her diary. We learn more about Astrid and why she would join a cultish group like this in the first place. Astrid always struggled struggled with loneliness and making ends meet, and finding this group of people seemingly helped her with her life and perspective of letting go and not being so fixated on earning money and struggling financially and socially. She writes in her diary that she finds the group very supportive and kind. They listen to her and value her. At times, when she struggled paying for her groceries, Father Valgaris even paid for her, making her feel that she truly belongs and that she has found a real family. Going through the diary, the protagonist reads more positive things about this group written by Astrid, but eventually, after a month of praises and journals, the tone seems to shift, with the last couple of pages being ripped out of the notebook. The protagonist, being taken aback, tries to go to sleep and not overthink about it already, having bad assumptions. The next morning, a lady comes knocking, asking for more help with finding ceremonial robes for the festival tomorrow. As the protagonist explores looking for the robes, she comes across a room. As she tries to open it, the leader of the group comes rushing, stopping her, desperately trying to convince her that he has nothing to hide and he needs his private quarters to have a stable contact with God and not to be distracted. The protagonist, finding this bizarre, feeling less and less comfortable with these people, goes on to find the robes, looking in other places. She eventually finds the robes, which seem dirty and very scary, with a cross drawn across of them. What kind of ceremony could this be, needing such clothes? The protagonist asks herself. That's when she comes across a newspaper article about a missing girl. The article insults the missing girl, calling her mentally unstable, and the police needs to be contacted when she is found, and no direct contact should be made with her. After collecting all the robes, she gets instructed to go to Yalmer to help with festival bonfire wood. As she goes to the shed, she meets with Elof, who seems to be mentally challenged, telling the protagonist about a concerning incident. Elof explains that the father is not very good and he is not what he tries to portray himself as, and that he took Astrid to the shit in the forest days ago, and ever since, Astrid has not been seen. The protagonist, seeing that something is definitely wrong, seeing how Father Valgaris is even guarding the exit to the forest, preventing anyone from leaving, decides to sneak into his office and take the key to the forest shed to see for herself if she can actually find Astrid there or not. In the first ending, which is an instant death, when the protagonist enters Valgaris' office, she is instantly killed by him, saying how she has seen too much already, being told not to enter. This is when we are proven that Valgaris is not a good person and horrifying things happen in this cult. In another ending, if the protagonist manages to sneak into the office without being seen, she finds the missing pages from Astrid's diary, which were ripped off. Astrid wrote that she was wrong about these people and they only pretended to be happy and friendly. She explains how Father Valgaris had a breakdown and exploded at her when she mentioned that she wanted to get in touch with some of her old friends. This toxic and controlling cultish behavior proves to Astrid that she is not safe and needs to escape. That's when the protagonist finds some documents about the festival, which runs shivers down her spine, chilling her bones, that she is to be sacrificed for the ritual in the festival. The rituals consist of the sacrifice picking flowers, lighting candles, and carrying firewood, which is eventually burned at the stake in the bonfire. The protagonist, understanding that she will be a sacrifice, tries desperately to find a way to escape without raising any suspicion. The protagonist takes a lantern with her and runs outside, trying to find the exit into the forest. Unfortunately, she is in the middle of nowhere and there is not much hope of finding a way into society and escaping, but she takes any chance that she can take. As she manages to leave the gated place, she finds the woodshed Elof talked about before. That's where she finds a hidden hatch door leading to an underground tunnel system where she finds her friend Astrid restrained. The protagonist doesn't know what else she expected, yet it is something she didn't want to believe. Fright takes over her body, with Astrid apologizing for luring her here, but explaining that she had no other choice, telling her to quickly hide. As the protagonist hides in a nearby wardrobe, she hears Father Valgaris explaining the story. He explains that he was the one forcing Astrid to lure her friend here to be this year's sacrifice, and that he was the one telling the police that she is crazy when she ran away, so that they can return her to them. This was the article mentioning her in the newspaper. Astrid was just a pawn, someone that they could exploit and use, using her loneliness against her to lure her and control her and bring her into this cult. As Valgriss leaves, Astrid apologizes to the protagonist and tells her to find the car key in Valgriss's office, which is the only way out as the forest is very large. The protagonist picks up a knife from a range of dangerous tools on the table, which seem to be used for torturing Astrid. She picks up the knife, and as she leaves, Valgriss is standing right there, waiting for her. The protagonist quickly incapacitates him and runs away. As she tries to run away, if she is caught by the cult members who are chanting something in black robes, the protagonist is thrown into the fire, becoming the sacrifice. If instead the protagonist takes a detour away from the cult members, she runs into the forest on foot, where she conveniently finds a police car waiting outside. She runs crying when the sheriff takes her in. But it only turns out that this is the cop that is working with the cult who captures her and takes her back to the community where she can be sacrificed. This cop conveniently waits in the forest on the lookout when the festival is taking place, just to capture the people who want to run away. This is how Astrid was also captured, seemingly by the same exact cop. The only good ending is when the protagonist goes back to Valgriss's office, taking his van key. She then has to navigate through the main ceremonial ground with cult members running towards her, getting to the car to drive off. That is the only way that she can survive, but not the same thing can be said about her friend Astrid, who will possibly be this year's ritual sacrifice, as they have already dressed up in robes, so it would be all in vain otherwise. Despite managing to run away, I don't think anyone would believe the protagonist, and she would live a life in fear and trauma, seeing how her friend was restrained, tortured, and possibly killed, who will need lifelong therapy to even slightly cope. And that's it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. As always, it's been your host Star. Thanks for being here, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.